I thought my sleep meds were helping me until I began seeing things that weren't there. I started having trouble sleeping when I moved into a new home. At first, it was small things that made it difficult to sleep. There were too many distracting noises, or I couldn't get comfortable. Eventually, it got to the point where I never felt tired when I laid down for bed. All the drowsiness I had felt during the day just disappeared as soon as my head hit the pillow. It got so bad that I went to the doctor about my issues. It took some convincing, but she eventually prescribed me some sleeping pills. I was optimistic since this came from my doctor. On that first night, I experienced my first night of rest in a long time. I felt so much better the next day. My mind and senses felt sharper. After several nights of better sleep, I began to hear things that didn't seem right. It was like someone was always whispering in my ear, but I couldn't tell what they were saying. This didn't deter me too much because I was finally catching up on rest. Then, I started seeing the figures. They were like shadows hiding behind doors or in other rooms. Sometimes, I could even make out glowing red eyes. I would notice them in the corners of my eyes, but as soon as I turned to get a better look at them, they were gone. That was where I began to feel concerned. The med bottle said I might experience hallucinations. It was easy to brush them off after that and think that they'd go away once I caught up on sleep. That became a bigger problem when I ran out of meds. I called my doc for more, but she said the meds weren't meant for long-time use. She shot down my requests for more, and so I had to go without them again. It was a nightmare. I had the same issues falling asleep, but I could still hear the whispers. I barely got any sleep. The day after that, I got some over-the-counter sleeping pills from the pharmacy. I took them as soon as I got home and felt drowsy again. Slowly, I succumbed to the gentle warmth of my oncoming slumber. There was peace and quiet in being able to sleep again. That changed when I woke up again. I felt well rested, but something was different. It was the voices. They were whispering louder. When I looked around, I could actually see the figures now. They weren't detailed, but they wouldn't immediately disappear. The whispers sounded louder when the figures were around. I thought the hallucinations couldn't get any worse. After a few days of taking the other pills, I began to notice even more weird things. My room felt hotter than usual, especially when I was turning in for the night. I started seeing symbols on the floors and walls. It all came to a head weeks ago. I had been trying to ignore the hallucinations. The meds were starting to hit me with another wave of sleepiness. As I entered the bedroom, a figure appeared that was unlike anything I had ever seen before. It was crouching on the bed, as if it was waiting for me. It had massive horns sprouting from the top of its head. It looked like some kind of demon. The whispers were in a frenzy. It was like 1,000 voices were in my head all at once. I thought sleep would be impossible anyway, so I ran. The time got away from me. Everything that happened after I left the apartment was lost in a haze. The sun rose and I vowed that I'd give up the sleeping pills. I knew it would be difficult, but I couldn't deal with the hallucinations anymore. After several days of staying off those pills, the hallucinations began to subside. I saw the figures less and less. The whispers got quieter and I heard them less frequently. I moved again, which seemed to help too. Even though sleeping was still difficult, I at least felt like myself. It got to the point where I thought I had fully recovered from that episode. But every night I entered my bedroom, I was brought back to that one moment where I was face to face with a demon. Nothing could have prepared me for waking up in the middle of the night and realizing that someone was in my room. Fear overtook me. In the faint moonlight, I could barely make out the form of someone in my bedroom. I couldn't tell exactly how big they were, but the hair made me think it was a woman. I tried racking my brain to figure out who it could be, but my head started aching. I felt a dull pain in the back of my head and resisted the urge to groan. The figure was going back and forth, going between the closet and one of the dressers. I remained still and tried to watch without giving away that I was awake. I had to figure something out. The muscles in my body tensed as the form approached the bed. She climbed over me and proceeded to lay next to me. Her arms snaked their way around my body and pulled me into an embrace. Confusion and unease stirred in my mind. Then she whispered, "You're all mine." I immediately pulled away and got off the bed. She sat up and stared at me. The lights flicked on when I hit the switch, and we both squinted as our eyes adjusted. When my vision was clearer, I saw that her face was familiar. It was difficult for me to place her, but I was aware that I knew her somehow. She seemed frightened at first, then confused. "Darren, what are you doing?" She knew my name. "Who are you?" "It's me, Lizzie. Darren, I'm your girlfriend." The back of my head throbbed. I brought my hand to the area to rub it. "What happened to my head?" "You fell. I didn't realize you hit your head." Her voice was calm now. The concern in her face was easy to read, but I still felt like there was something else. How did I fall?" "I don't know. I heard you go down and then I came to check on you. You were on your hands and knees, so I assumed you slipped or tripped." "You're sure you can't remember me?" "Not exactly." There was a flash of anger in her expression before it returned to worry. "Was I doing anything before the fall?" She looked away, her brows furrowed. It looked like she was trying to figure something out. "Well, we were fighting. We got into an argument about something and then you left the room. That was when you fell." Something about that didn't feel right. "So I fell, got on my hands and knees. Then what?" She looked away again, then continued. "You got up and told me you were just gonna go to bed." That would explain why I woke up in my bed. Something still felt off. Liz. I examined her face as the faintest hints of a memory started returning to me. It began with her eyes. There was a lot of emotion in them. They were almost pleading. The rest of her face seemed pained as well. "Darren, I love you." With those words, I began to see and feel everything again. She had told me that before with even more emotion then. The fog in my mind started to roll back as I saw her with tears in my eyes. I did know her, but not really. I had seen her a few times at the coffee shop I worked at, but that was it. She wasn't my girlfriend. "Liz, what are you doing here?" "I'm trying to be the best girlfriend I can be for you." At that point, it hit me. She showed up to my house. I invited her in to be nice, but then she started talking about being the one for me. Things got heated after I asked her to leave. As the memories came back, I could spot the fanaticism in her eyes. I had turned away from her so I could call the cops. That was when I felt a sudden pain in the back of my head. She knocked me out before. "I want you to leave." "Darren, you can't do this to me. We're supposed to be together." "Please leave." I backed away from her and she pursued. The tears rolled down her cheeks through the angry expression on her face. "Darren!" Hours later, I was answering questions from the police. I had protected myself from a stalker, and somehow I was being investigated. That changed when they saw and felt my head injury. As paramedics took me to the hospital, all I thought about was the fact that I might not have woken up from the first confrontation. I was beginning to think that the people conducting the sleep study were lying. I stirred, pulling myself from the darkness of unconsciousness. Suddenly, I was awake, but I couldn't move. In fact, I couldn't see or feel anything. Even though it seemed like it could be possible, this wasn't what I was expecting from the study. The researchers told me I might experience strange dreams and sensations as a result of their experiment. According to them, they wanted to see how different types of sound waves affected the brain's activity during sleep. They also talked about wanting to activate certain parts of the brain. I tried to speak, but I couldn't. I tried moving, but nothing happened. An eerie tone began to play in my head. It gradually increased in volume until it was just shy of being too loud. Then it stopped. and I thought I heard voices. My focus shifted to those voices, and I strained my ears. "This is a miracle, Dr. Brantley. Yeah, we're getting even more activity than before." More activity than before? That didn't make sense to me, unless they had been talking about someone else in the study. I continued listening. This could help so many people. I was beginning to wonder how sound waves could actually help people in their sleep when they said something that chilled me. With enough time and research, we'll be able to help other coma victims. I would have brought my hands to my face if I could. My mind raced back to when they explained the sleep study to me. I couldn't actually remember seeing their faces. I retraced my steps and wondered when they had briefed me on the study. All I could really remember was receiving their instructions. I tried going back further, hoping to remember anything before the sleep study. There were moments, but they were blurry. It was like looking through vignettes. I could only get a sense of what happened in each of those memories. Then I was struck with confusion, pain, and fear. I caught a glimpse of a memory, so I focused on that. It wasn't recent, but one of the things that stuck out about it was how clear it was. I was behind the wheel of a car when another swerved into my lane. Everything seemed to slow down. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it just thinking about it. The machines around me began beeping rapidly. I realized they had hooked me up to an EKG. His heart rate is escalating. Something is wrong. I saw the other driver absolutely terrified as we raced towards each other. I think this one is remembering something. Look at all that activity. The memory I relived stopped just short of the crash. Luckily, that meant I didn't have to experience the pain again. But that was also when reality set in. I was lied to. This wasn't a sleep study. It was some kind of experiment on coma victims. Finally, the last realization struck me. I was in a coma. I didn't know when it happened or how long I had been like that. How long would I stay like this? Maybe there was some hope that eventually I could be brought out of it. But in those moments, I stewed in despair, knowing that my life wasn't what I thought it was.